Tier 100 dungeons are not easy, at least not for a melee rogue, as I recently found out when trying to finally get my achievement. So here we are today after farming gear for about a week and a half. I was quite busy as well, so I do apologize for not following up faster, but basically we now have the right pieces or the right roles on each of our gear piece along with the right aspects in the right places to finally be able to handle tier 100 dungeons a little bit more efficiently. But we're quite far from being able to do just about any of them with any modifiers, right? So this new build, or rather this build variant, is pretty similar to the latest one that I just presented, but now we're also very close to being able to do the Uber Lilith fight with basically just about the same gear, or very minor tweaks that allows us to have a very high DPS, and now in this case a very good amount of crowd control. So the build, or the concept, as I'll explain shortly, is very tactical. It is in just as fast as you are out, so basically you have like 3 or 4 seconds to deal your combo or your damage, apply poison damage, and then walk out, basically not to take a hit if you can. Literally not a single hit, because just about anything in these dungeons can kill you. Anyway, so after trying multiple times in quite a few different dungeons, I finally managed to get at least one successful run. I did try a lot of tier 100 dungeons, but I wasted so much time just working my way up to tier 100 when in fact I should have just stick to speedrunning low tier dungeons, so let's say between, I don't know, 60 and 70, to accumulate enough sigil powder to then craft 91s to 100s, and basically only keep the ones that are 99 or 100 and then attempt those, basically, right? So again, too much time spent trying to get there and not enough time spent preparing for this. I leveled way too many glyphs. I didn't pay enough attention to the damage reduction on my gear when I had my speedrunning build. So anyway, all of that combined made it so that I'm pretty late to the party in completing a tier 100, but at least in today's build and video, I want to share everything that I know with you guys so that you can better prepare for the upcoming Season 1. Few things to note about the build, how it works, and tier 100s. Basically, you need to fully crowd control the screen. If you do not do this, you will die, whether it be from an archer or a teleporting enemy champion. As for our combo, it is the same as before. We're using Twisted Blades along with the Poison Imbuement to deal our damage. We are using the Death Trap along with the Poison Trap to control the enemies, and Concealment is used to initiate the fight. And this is especially important against every pack of elites that you are going to encounter. You basically walk in there with Concealment, you drop your Poison Traps, which is going to instantly knock them down and prevent them from starting to use their modifiers. This is really important, especially against, for example, Fire Enchanted, where you get those fireballs under them that kind of follow you, and then when they die, they blow up. If you do not do this, you will basically die when trying to fight those guys. There's some even worse ones out there. For example, the Lightning Enchanted, which I believe when you hit them, they start releasing little lightning balls. Those are super hard to deal with. But anyway, this is how you use the build. The next point I want to talk about is the spawn rooms. Most dungeons have them. Some of them are easier than others. Basically, you do your usual combo, but don't stay in one place. The strategy is to usually kind of move around a room so that you can benefit from basically either the exploding barrels that are sometimes there. Some of them have like a totem in the middle that deal a lot of damage. You need to DPS it down as quickly as possible, and you're going to get waves of mobs, which is not ideal for our setup because we have a long cooldown. So there's no easy way to deal with them. I've tried the bubble aspect where you get immune for a couple seconds, but even that sometimes wasn't quite enough. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about is how we're tweaking the build for it to work against Uber Lilith. I say work, I have not extensively tested this, but it does seem like it will work. It might take a few extra tries. All I'm really doing here is I'm holding back my DPS in the beginning, and then I will go into full DPS once her stagger bar is high enough, right? So on our gear, all we're changing is 3 pieces or 3 aspects, and the stats, obviously, 18 Paragon points and 4 skill points. That's all I really need to change for this to work with 0 mechanics. But again, more testing is needed to see how well it is going to hold up. But at least it is a lot more efficient in terms of gearing and gold, because we don't have to make dedicated builds anymore. This is going to be the one build to do it all, and this is exactly what I will be using in Season 1. So all that said, let's go check the gear and the skills. So if you guys want simply the short version, I will have a link in the description to the build for you guys, but here are a few things I want to explain about why the gear is the way that it is. So the helm is new. I literally got this as of yesterday, and then these pants as well. So the issue was to balance my pants, my chest piece, and my armor to have the right amount of damage reduction, armor percent, damage reduction from close enemies, distant enemies, and poisoned enemies, okay? So overall, I am going for armor percent on these 4 pieces. Then I want damage reduction, ideally on these 3 pieces, but I only have 2 because I am using movement speed instead. I kind of got away with the movement speed. I would prefer it to be my 3rd roll of regular damage reduction. And then you're going to want, ideally on these 3 pieces, a mix of 2 damage reduction from close enemies and 2 damage reduction from distant enemies, and then 1 damage reduction from poisoned enemies. I don't quite have that. It worked this way, but that is what I would plan for, okay? As for the stats, you'll notice that I have 630 strength. That is because of how my paragons are. So I would say aim for this, and the only way to do this is with the all stats on the helm, all stats on the 2-hand, on 1 sword, and then we have dexterity on the 2nd 1 hand. As for the aspects, we have the Umbrus on the helm. I've tried the other one, which is basic skills, grant 20% damage reduction. They both work. I prefer this one because when you have 5 stacks, you get more damage reduction, at least I think. So you can survive 1 or 2 hits, and then you got to get out anyway, right? As for the chest piece, I'm still using the Shared Misery. I preferred this chest piece over other options. However, I do use either this chest piece against bosses, as you saw in the beginning, or for example this one here, which I've been trying when we get those spawn rooms, right? So but overall, this is the one that I wear most of the time. As for the gloves, same gloves as before with the frostbitten aspect, sorry. Then we have the disobedience on our pants now, not on our amulet. We went back with putting the attack speed. For a while there, I kind of switched it up, but I seem to always kind of be drawn back to this setup, the attack speed on the amulet and then the imbuement on the 2-hand weapon. We have our Penitent Greaves boots, and then the imbuement, core skill damage, damage to close enemies, crit damage, vulnerable damage. I'm still using the unique crossbow from one of the mini world bosses. I still have yet to get a better crossbow. Then for the amulet, so like I said, I have some movement speed, but I would suggest you go for your 3rd roll, sorry, of regular damage reduction. Both rings are the same now, so crit hit, crit damage, lucky hit, and vulnerable damage. One of them has the bursting venoms, the other one has the retribution. And then for the weapons, we have twisting blades on one of them. One of them is a sword. It could be a dagger. I prefer daggers overall for the extra attack speed. And then the other one is the infiltrator, right? So I also placed these aspects to work with the gear swap, which I will cover now real quick, but I will also have a link in the description to the tweaked build for the Uber Lilith. So for Uber Lilith, what I would change, I think I said 3 pieces in the beginning, it's actually 4. So this one is not perfect, but the builder will have the right piece. So we want Mangler's aspect to replace our helm. For the chest piece, we want full offensive, and we're adding Noxious Ice. So we're literally dropping all our survivability for basically all damage. For the amulet, still attack speed, but way more offensive than defensive. So all imbuements, imbuement skill damage, energy cost reduction doesn't hurt, obviously. Exploit instead should be weapon mastery. If you can get that, that would be huge. This is also going to give us our 1 point of the cold imbuement that we need for the Uber Lilith fight that you guys saw in the beginning. The rings stay the same, and then for the weapons, they stay the same except the 2nd one, which we obviously don't need this, and then we go back to Ashara's dagger. It could be an emerald in it, to be honest. I think I'm just going to roll with emeralds all the time now. I didn't see a noticeable difference with the other one. So this would be basically it. That would be my swap for the Uber Lilith fight. So literally only those 4 pieces, and then if not, then I go back to this setup right here. Now let's check the skills. So same setup as before. We don't need to spend too much time here, but here is the swap that I did for that Uber Lilith fight. Obviously, you could change even more points to be even more efficient, but I tried to change as little as possible just to kind of prove the concept. So we would drop concealment because we don't really need it for the fight. We need the extra stun or the stagger here from our shadow step. So there's 3 points, and then you would simply change exposure to your close quarters combat. That's it, right? Obviously you could have more points into deadly venom. So we could remove some of these points down here. We could go for more crit rate from traps or from our imbuements. So basically it works overall with as little as 4 changed skill points, but again, you could optimize for more. Now let's check the Paragon points. So I finally gotten around to completely changing my board, but now to work with the same boards all the time, but just swap a few legendary powers based on what I'm trying to do, okay? So this right here is the setup that I am using for the Nightmare push, okay? So we have the starter board with Closer, then we've got our Tricks of the Trade, which is now earlier in our boards, along with the Combat glyph. Then we've got our Deadly Ambush with the Control. After that, we've got our Turf in the Cunning Stratagem, followed by the Efficacy in the, which one is this one? This one is the Cheap Shot, right? So this is the one where obviously it won't do much for us during the Uber Lilith fight. So what I would do is to remove some points from this one to further into this one up here, which is the Eldritch Bounty along with the Bane glyph. Okay, so same glyphs, they do not move. All we change is these points right here. Okay, I remove all of these. I remove this little section right here, which gives me 18 points, which is just enough for me to go up here, I believe down here, and then all the way up to the Eldritch Bounty up there, okay, for the Uber Lilith fight. Here's why we need 630 strength at least. Against the Uber Lilith fight, we have even more. But that's all right because we always want to make sure we have enough, and we want to have basically enough wiggle room so that we don't need perfect rolls. Whereas on my current gear, I'm very close to perfect rolls and I almost don't have enough. Okay, so that's the gist of it. I found that this here kind of really helped for our initial burst of damage against the trash mobs and elites, basically. So that's it. There you go. All you really need to handle tier 100s, obviously not do them all, I'm very far from that, but then we're also able to do Uber Lilith with very few changes with our gear, skills, and the Paragon points. So hopefully you guys like this build. Do let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you have any tips and tricks on how to handle certain elites or modifiers in the Nightmare tier 100 dungeons? That would be great. I'd love to have your thoughts, your feedback. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.